research for this interview, read that you have a flair for languages and poetry, and you often deliver public speeches in verse form. Can you please talk about it?
Yes, sure. By profession, I'm a chemical engineer, and while my father was a PhD in chemical technology, both my grandmother and my mother studied English literature. And my grandmother used to write poetry for the independence movement. She used to write in magazines promoting the independence movement. This was in the 1930s and 1920s. And she always used to recite poetry, so I was always very interested in poetry. And one day I made a speech in verse. It was a vote of thanks, so I thought usually vote of thanks are very boring, so I said I might as well write a poem. It was in Calcutta, it was a big hit, and then I said, why not I always write speeches in verse?
We are coming out of the shadow of this pandemic. What, according to you, will be the new traits leaders will need to demonstrate to be successful in the changed workplace?
The leaders will need much more empathy. Already in the pandemic, successful leaders have learned to empathize. Workers, customers, everybody has suffered deeply. And leaders who have empathized with the suffering and found cures for the suffering have been much more successful. So the pandemic has been very painful, but the silver lining is that we have learned a lot. We have learned that there is a lot of inequality and there is a lot of environmental damage, and both of these things need to be cured, and leaders have to take these initiatives. They cannot just rely on business as usual, but they have to solve these problems to get the trust of the people.
So it's empathy with compassion, which will be one of the skills that leaders of the future will need. Thank you.
Has both made it necessary and taught us that.
What is your biggest people problem that you are trying to solve now?
Within the organization, I don't see any serious people problem. But for society at large, as I said, curing climate change and curing inequality are the big problems for society and therefore for business as well.
As a leader of an organization, when looking to fill senior positions, vacant senior positions, would you go for internal candidates or cast your net for outsiders too?
Largely on internal candidates, but sometimes if you haven't prepared the ground properly or a sudden vacancy comes up that cannot be filled internally, then we do go outside. But the internal candidate has the advantage that you know them thoroughly, you've been able to train them well. So the preference is for internal candidates. We do not rule out outside candidates. Sometimes we look at both, but we always give a little bit more weight to the internal candidate, because one of the things the internal candidate has is he understands the culture, he's part of the culture.
Thank you. Now Anila would have some questions for you. Or
No questions? No, I just want to ask you one thing, that if you're appointing a youth, what are the two qualities you would look into it besides their qualification and besides their passion? Because everybody would have that passion, and so what would you look into their CV?
I wouldn't look into the CV, but in an interview or something, I would try and judge how good their emotional quotient is and their social quotient is, because that's something you cannot get from CVs, but you can get from dialogue with them. And in modern life, that is the most important thing, because intelligence is easy to come by.
Yes, absolutely.
And easy to judge from a CV or from documents, but emotional quotient is what you can judge by talking to people. And more in the modern business, it is your ability to rally people that is important and is the most important leadership quality. If you lack in intelligence, you can always hire more intelligent people than you, You know, all you need to know is how to manage those intelligent people. You don't have to be intelligent yourself.
How lovely it is, interpersonal relationship, and the team, the person has to be a team player. So these are the two qualities one would look forward for this youth. This would be the message. Thank you so very much. And on behalf of Rotary District 3141, we would like to hand over this small token of appreciation.